You're known for describing your college experience as great, except for one bad day at Kent State, which is a testament to your positivity and unique perspective. You've spoken about the role of faith, of spirituality in shaping your outlook. Can you speak more about that? Do you feel other aspects of your identity, including race, gender, class, and etc., may have been factors of shaping your worldview? What helped you recover and redefine your life in its aftermath?
That's like a 5-part question.
I'll repeat it again if needed.
Just the first part, please.
Well, you've spoken about the role of faith, of spirituality in shaping your outlook. Can you speak more about that?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the church. My mother was Catholic. My father was part of the Church of the Brethren, which are like the old Dunkers. At one point in time, when my great-grandfather was a young minister, he decided that we should become more social. We should become more modern. At one point, my religion was very much like the Amish and then the Mennonite. And so that's the background that I had. We were antisocial at one point, but we were experimenting into this new thing of being social and part of modern day society. My grandfather was part of a group of about 100 some ministers in the faith who decided that we should become more modern. And he was a seminary graduate way back then. And he pushed for that. And so my faith was guided by the fact that I had many generations in the church. My faith was very strong. My central activities were church activities from a very young age. And then when I became old enough and athletic enough to play sports, I played basketball and baseball and was in senior class plays and a couple of clubs. So my majority of social activities growing up was in the church, but also in these other activities that were part of my society at the time. And so faith, I say I'm very thankful to be alive. Every day I wake up, I'm thankful that I'm alive, thankful that I can draw a breath.
Do you think your perspective is, does it account for other aspects of your identity, such as race, gender, class, which can be factors?
Well, I'm lucky to be part of a privileged group of white men, simple as that. But I don't take it for granted. You know, I've learned the lessons from the civil rights movement. I've learned the lessons from the women's movement. I learned the lessons of being humble as a kid through my faith. I'm not one to show off, except for maybe when I'm doing something in sports activities. You know, at the end of a race or an end of an activity, I'll rejoice and celebrate. My gender and my race, and I'm fortunate enough that I was able to go to college. My parents couldn't afford to send me there. I worked hard. I worked in a steel mill for a year before I went to college to raise money to go to school. I was accepted to go to school at Canton in 1970, fall of 1970. But during the Nixon recession of the spring of 1970, I got laid off. And I called Kent and asked them if I may come early, and they said yes. So if it hadn't been for the Nixon recession, I still would have been working at Republic Steel in Canton, Ohio. Instead, I was on the Kent campus for 5 weeks prior to getting shot. And so I was fortunate to get there, I thought, at the time. I was very happy to be there and get a head start on it, because I was hoping by the time school would let out, I might be able to get back into Republic Steel again and work to raise more money so I could have another half year or so paid for, because I already had 2 years of college paid for, because college back then was reasonable. It was supported by the state. Kent State is a state institution, and it was designed to take care of the middle class so that they could send their children to school. One of many colleges in the state of Ohio, state institutions. So, I'm real thankful that I grew up in the era that I did, and I'm thankful that I grew up with the knowledge of parents who had more vision than what was immediately around them. They had a vision of the world, primarily because my father fought in a war, World War II. My mother grew up in an orphanage, exposed to nuns who were from around the world as well and had their education background influence on her. So.
From your vantage point, what progress do you think we have made in addressing inequalities in both college life and in American society?
Well, women don't have to go to women's colleges anymore. People of color hopefully are treated with more respect and have more eligibility than they had back in the 50s and the early 60s when I was growing up. And I think it's important that we learn those lessons from our mistakes and that we grow and develop and allow for differences. Because we only look at ourselves, we only see ourselves. But when we look at people who are different than us, we learn from them, their culture, their societal norms, their backgrounds, and we learn their history. And we realize that, they're going through some of the very similar things we are going through. They're dealing with the prejudices of the world. They're dealing with the struggle of getting up and going to work every day. They're dealing with the struggle of just surviving in a cutthroat society that forces you to be competitive to a point where you spend your time figuring out how you can get from point A to point D with the least amount of trouble.
In my time as an undergrad at OSU, I've noticed an uptake of political protests, and to me, it feels like we're in an era of increasing political engagement as well as political frustration. Why do you think students at universities and campuses are the major sites of political action? What do you think has changed at universities since 1970?
Well, a lot has changed. We went through a malaise for a while there, to quote one other president. And the change we've gone through is that people are more educated coming out of high school than we were. And they're more aware of the issues of the world and of this country. And they have a voice that we didn't have. Just look at the media technology that is around us this day. I mean, you can be your own reporter and your own researcher and your own producer and your own voice and your own image in the camera. And you can broadcast that. You can copyright that on your own. And so it's a whole different era than what we had. Back then, we had to rely on the national media, the local media. And the national media was a victim of presidential and people who don't like what the media does, just as they are today. And I think it's fascinating that we have a president who condemns the media, but he loves being on camera every single day. And he loves humiliating and insulting reporters, and all in a way to distract from the issues that are really facing us. He's a master of distraction, and we have to keep remembering that what we have to deal with. We're dealing with the Iran war, we're dealing with the Epstein files, we're dealing with the corruption and his stealing of the money from people, and the way he treats people, and the fact that people were killed in protest in Minnesota. These are all distractions because he's up there on camera every day doing that to try to confuse us and create chaos and throw much stuff on the wall that we can't focus. And I forget who I was listening to on television a while back, not too long ago. It was Katie Fang, and she was talking about pick one issue, maybe two. Focus on that which is important to you, because there are people who are focusing on other issues out there and bringing the pressure. So don't confuse yourself with every big picture that's out there. Focus on one or two issues. Focus on those and do your best to bring those to the fore, because there are people just like you dealing with every other issue out there. You are not alone.
Why do you think universities, students, campuses, and academic centers are sites of major political action?
That's an easy one. it's a place of education. And where do you get your education? You have the historians, you have the professors, you have the sociologists, you have the geographers, you have the political scientists, you have the psychologists who are helping you develop a well-rounded person, to use a term that I grew up with in the 70s when I went to college. You go to college to become a well-rounded person. You become a jack of all trades and a master of one or two. And so it's a matter of circumstance, because we're all here and we're on a college campus. And those of us who go to college never stop learning. And we never stop going back to college campuses. We may not be at our own college campus, but when we walk onto one, we have a very familiar feeling. And we enjoy that academic camaraderie. And we feel the pain that was suffered almost every college campus that we grew up with in the 70s.
What has helped you recover and redefine your life after the event of May?
Well, that's another easy one. I had a very loving family, a very loving mother and father who knew the world. I had a loving community around me in high school, from my high school years. I had a loving community at Kent State University, not only the academics, but one of the major people that really sent me cards and letters were the people who worked in the buildings, who were the custodians, people who worked on the grounds crews. They sent me flowers. The overwhelming support, the support was overwhelming. And I really had no choice in the matter. I needed to get better. I needed to go on with my life. Because of my upbringing and my faith and the support I had, it was not hard to recuperate and to put my head on square. I had all that support after I got shot. I also had great psychologists at the rehab center who were treating me. Most of them were students. And after taking many, many tests, after several months, I said, I'm not taking another damn test. I want to see who the psychologist is. I went and had a chat with him, found out he was a Kent State graduate with his PhD in psychology. And he told me that I didn't need any more psychological testing. He said, never dealt with somebody who had the background that you had, and the faith that you had, and the knowledge of what you were planning on doing with your life. You had a goal, you had a pathway to get there, and you had the support of your family and your communities behind you. And so I was really lucky in that sense of the word to go through that experience with that and have that kind of support from people, not only immediately, but around the world. I mean, I got cards and letters from Germany and Great Britain and France and Spain, and people from across the country during 1970, the summer. They would stop at the hospital, walk in and say, where can I go visit Dean Kahler? Unlike today, you got to go through security and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I had people from all over this country, and I even had two people from Germany who were in the States touring, came and visit me in the hospital and the rehab center. And when you get that kind of overwhelming support and encouragement, and like I say, with my background and my upbringing, it just reaffirmed that I didn't do anything wrong. I was just exercising my First Amendment right, which I will continue to do the rest of my life. And I'm very thankful and very lucky that I had that kind of encouragement and support from around the world.
You committed your life to activism, both for nonviolence and disability rights. You also served in elected office. What advice do you have for today's students and the challenges of today?
Well, your challenges are slightly different than ours, but they all boil down to the one thing, and that is being involved in a way that you can support your community, you can resist stupidity, you can resist oppression, and you can make your life and the people around you's life more comfortable, more educated, and more fulfilling. And I think that's part of our society. That's how you become a good citizen, and that's how you become a good community member. Our founding fathers believed in being involved in your community. You know, it wasn't just you're just being a democracy and democracy. Yes, you're supposed to vote, but you got to learn what the issues are. You got to make sure you vote. You got to know who the people are and all the issues and the community groups that they're needing your support. We live in a society that really needs community support. All these boards, commissions, and agencies, they're all ways to be part of a democracy. It's not just running for office. It's all these boards, commissions, and agencies. Child services, mental disability services, education boards, city councils. They all have committees to do research for them, and you can work in those committees and do that in your small community that you live in. It has a ripple effect throughout the whole community of this country. It's important to do that. That's what I advise people to do. Register to vote. Be involved in your community. You don't have to be involved in every activity, every agency, every board. Pick a board or two. Donate a little time of your life every month or every week. It's not hard to do. It's very simple to do.
And that was our final question.
All right. Thank you so much. It's a wrap. Thank you.